I was about to find out. My son asked me a question on Thanksgiving that didn't make sense. "Mom," he said, smiling like everything was normal, "did you like the lake house I gave you?" I looked at him, then at his wife, then back at him. And I said the only thing I could say. "What lake house?" The room went quiet. Not loud quiet. The kind that creeps in slowly, like something just went wrong and nobody knows how to fix it. David laughed at first. He thought I was joking. "You know," he said, still smiling. "The one by the water. I transferred it last year." I didn't laugh. I didn't smile. I just shook my head. "I don't own any house," I said. That's when his wife looked up. Not surprised. Not confused. Just watching. And that was the moment something shifted. Because a son can misunderstand something. But a woman who handles every document, every account, every detail in a household? She doesn't misunderstand. She knows. David's smile faded. Slowly. "Mom," he said, quieter now, "I've been sending money every month. For 2 years. I felt that in my chest. Not because of the money. Because of the time. 2 years. "I haven't received anything," I said. No anger. No accusation. Just the truth. He turned to his wife. "Victoria," he said, "what is she talking about?" She didn't answer right away. She closed her glass of wine gently, like she had all the time in the world. Then she said something that didn't sound wrong, but didn't feel right either. "I've been managing everything," she said. Managing. That word sat there between us. David frowned. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means I made sure everything was handled properly," she replied. Properly. Another clean word. Another empty answer. I didn't interrupt. Because I was starting to understand something. Not the details. Not yet. But the shape of it. 2 years of money. A house I never received. And one person in the middle of all of it. David stood up. Not angry. Not yet. Just unsettled. "Mom should have it," he said. "That was the whole point." Victoria looked at him. Calm. Steady. Almost patient. "She does," she said. I felt my hands go cold. Because I knew that wasn't true. And so did she. I leaned forward slightly. "Then show me," I said. She didn't move. Didn't reach for her phone. Didn't explain. She just looked at me. And for the first time that night, I saw it. Not confusion. Not surprise. Control. Careful. Measured. And completely intentional. That's when I realized something I should have seen earlier. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a delay. It wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. And whatever had been done quietly. Over time. Right in front of us. Without either of us seeing it. David looked between us again. "Okay," he said slowly. "Then we're going to go through everything." Victoria didn't argue. That should have been a relief. It wasn't. Because people who have nothing to hide don't stay that calm. And people who have everything under control don't panic when you start asking questions. They wait. For the right moment. To tell you only what they want you to know. I sat back in my chair, looking at the two of them. My son. And the woman who had been handling his life for years. And for the first time, I wasn't thinking about the house. Or the money. I was thinking about something else. If she had been managing everything for 2 years, then what else had she been managing? That we didn't even know about. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't going to be a simple conversation. It was going to be an unraveling. No one went back to eating. The food was still there. Plates half full. Glasses untouched. But the conversation had already moved somewhere else. David pulled his phone out again. Not casually this time. Focused. "Mom," he said, scrolling. I set up automatic transfers. Every month. Same date. I watched his face change as he read. They went through, he added. Every single one. I believe you, I said. And I did. That wasn't the part that confused me. The part that mattered was simple. I never received it, I said. He looked up at me. Then slowly turned to her. Victoria, he said. Where did the money go? She didn't react right away. Not surprised. Not defensive. Just composed. I told you, she said. I've been handling it. Handling. The same word. Still no meaning. David frowned. That's not an answer, he said. It is, she replied. You just don't like it. That was new. Not soft. Not careful. Direct. I leaned forward slightly. Then make it clear, I said. She looked at me. Held my gaze longer than before. Then said, the money didn't disappear. That sentence should have been reassuring. It wasn't. Then where is it? David asked. Victoria reached for her glass, took a small sip, then set it down again. Buying time. Thinking. Or choosing. It's allocated, she said. Allocated. Another clean word. Another empty one. David shook his head. No, he said. We're not doing that. No vague answers. The room tightened again. Because now he was pushing. And she knew it. Okay, she said calmly. Then she stood up. I'll show you. That should have made things better. It didn't. Because she didn't sound concerned. She sounded prepared. She walked out of the dining room without rushing. Not avoiding. Not hesitating. Like she had already decided how this conversation would go. David looked at me. You didn't get anything? He asked again. I shook my head. No house. No money. Nothing. He ran a hand through his hair. That's not possible, he muttered. But it was. We both knew it was. Because I had been living it. 2 years of budgeting every dollar. 2 years of saying no to things I used to afford. 2 years of thinking. This is just how life is now. And all that time. Something else had been happening. Right in front of us. Victoria came back with a laptop. Set it down on the table. Opened it. Turned it slightly toward David. Here, she said. Everything is organized. Organized. Of course it was. David leaned in. Scrolling. Reading. His eyes moving faster now. What am I looking at? He asked. Accounts, she said. Transfers. Property allocations. Property. That word again. I felt it this time. Not confusion. Not doubt. Recognition. Something in my chest tightened. David, I said quietly. Ask her whose name it's in. He paused. Then looked at her. Whose name? He asked. Victoria didn't hesitate. Mine, she said. The room went still. David blinked. What? He said. It's temporary, she added quickly. It was easier. This way. Easier. Easier for who? David stared at the screen again. Then back at her. You put everything under your name? He asked. I managed it efficiently, she replied. Your attorney sent everything in one package, she said. You signed it without going through each title. David didn't respond right away. That wasn't an explanation. It was control. I could see it now. Clearer than before. This wasn't about missing money. It wasn't about delays. It wasn't even about mistakes. It was about ownership. Who had it? And who didn't? David sat back slowly. Processing. Rebuilding everything he thought he knew. You told me it was for Mom, he said. It is, she replied. But it's in your name. Yes. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was realization. I looked at her. Really looked. At the way she sat. The way she spoke. The way nothing about this seemed unexpected to her. And that's when it became clear. She hadn't just handled things. She had positioned herself. Carefully. Quietly. Over time. Right between my son and everything he thought he was giving me. David closed the laptop halfway. Not all the way. Just enough. Okay, he said slowly. That word again. But different this time. Not casual. Controlled. Tomorrow, he continued, we're going to the bank. Victoria didn't react. Of course, she said. Too easy. Too ready. And that's when I felt it. That small, quiet warning in the back of my mind. Because people who are hiding something usually try to stop you, delay you, redirect you. She didn't. She agreed. Immediately. And that meant one thing. Whatever we were about to find tomorrow, she already knew we would. And she wasn't afraid of it. That was the part that didn't make sense yet. But it would. Soon. The next morning, I woke up before the sun came up. Not because I had anything to cook. Not because anyone was coming over. But because I couldn't sleep. There's a certain kind of silence that feels different when something is wrong. The house was the same as always, but the air felt heavier. Like it was waiting for something. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the same place I had sat the night before, staring at the same notebook. The numbers hadn't changed. But now I knew they were incomplete. At exactly 8:02 a.m. my phone rang. David. I'm on my way to the bank, he said, his voice already tense. I called ahead. They're pulling the records. I'll be here, I replied. A short pause. Mom, if something's wrong, I'm going to fix it. I didn't answer that. Because some things can't be fixed the way people think. I'll be here, I repeated and hung up. The next 2 hours passed slowly. I didn't turn on the television. I didn't clean. I didn't distract myself. I just waited. At 10:17, my phone rang again. This time, David didn't sound like himself. Mom, he said, quieter now. Controlled, but barely. I need you to listen carefully. I straightened in my chair. They confirmed the transfers, he continued. Every single one. Same amount every month. All sent to the same account. My grip tightened around the phone. Whose account? I asked. A pause. Longer this time. Then he said it. Victoria's. The words settled into the room like something solid. Heavy. Unavoidable. I closed my eyes for a moment. Not in shock. Not even in disbelief. Just acknowledgement. I see, I said. David exhaled sharply on the other end. I don't understand, he said. The account was listed as a temporary holding account. That's what she told me. She said it was easier to manage everything in one place before transferring it to you. And the house? I asked. They're checking the property records now, he said. The lawyer's office is involved. I'll call you back as soon as I know. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Take your time, I said. But my voice felt distant. Like it belonged to someone else. When the call ended, I set the phone down carefully. Victoria. Not a mistake. Not a delay. A decision. 2 years of decisions. I stood up and walked slowly through the house. The living room. The hallway. The small bedroom I had moved into after my husband passed. Nothing had changed. And yet everything had. I stopped by the window and looked outside. The street was quiet. A neighbor walking their dog. A car passing by. Ordinary life continuing, untouched. For a moment, I tried to place the feeling inside me. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was clarity. The kind that comes when pieces finally fit together. All the times Victoria insisted on handling paperwork. All the time she told me not to worry about finances. All the moments she smiled and said, "I've taken care of it." She had. Just not for me. My phone rang again. David. This time, he didn't wait. "The house was never transferred to you," he said. I didn't speak. "It's in her name," he continued. "Has been for almost 2 years." I sat down slowly. "How?" I asked. "I signed documents," he said. I trusted her. She said it was temporary. That she'd finalize everything once the tax issues were cleared. His voice tightened. I didn't double-check. No. He didn't. "Mom," he said softer now, "there's more." Of course there was. "There's a second property," he said. Smaller. Also under her name. Bought 6 months ago. "With what money?" I asked. Another pause. Then quietly. "Mine." I let out a slow breath. The room felt very still. "So," I said, choosing each word carefully, "for 2 years you've been sending money. Buying property. Signing documents." "Yes." "And all of it ended up with her." "Yes." There it was. Simple. Clear. Irreversible. On the other end of the line, I could hear movement. Voices. Papers shifting. Someone speaking to David in the background. "Mom," he said again, more urgently now. "I'm going to confront her. Today." "No," I said. The word came out calm. Firm. He stopped. "What?" "Not yet," I continued. "You don't have everything." "I have enough," he said. "She stole from you." "From me?" "Yes," I said. "But right now, she still thinks you don't know." Silence. Then, slower. "You want me to wait?" "I want you to be certain," I replied. "Completely certain. Every account. Every document. Every transaction. Because once this starts, it doesn't stop halfway." David exhaled. "You're right," he said quietly. "I know." Another pause. Then he added, "She's home." I felt something shift again. This time, it was different. Not confusion. Not clarity. Something sharper. "Good," I said. "Good?" he repeated. "Yes." I looked down at my hands. They were steady now. Completely steady. "Let her stay there," I continued. "Let her feel comfortable." "Mom, she's been careful for 2 years," I said. "Which means she believes she's safe." I stood up slowly, walking back toward the kitchen table. The same table where everything had started. "But she made one mistake," I added. David didn't speak. "She said everything was taken care of," I said. I picked up my notebook again, flipping it open. Empty spaces. Missing pieces? Now explained. "And now," I finished quietly, "we're going to take a closer look at what that really means." On the other end of the line, David didn't argue. Because he understood. This wasn't just about finding the truth anymore. It was about what we were going to do with it. And for the first time he was about to find out. Since yesterday. I wasn't just waiting. I was preparing. By noon, the story was no longer about missing money. It was about a pattern. David called again, this time from his office. I could hear the difference immediately. Quieter background. Door closed. Focused. "I pulled everything I could," he said. "Bank statements, wire confirmations, property records, even tax filings." He wasn't guessing anymore. He was verifying. "Tell me," I said. There was a pause, the sound of papers shifting. "The transfers started small," he explained. "First few months, just a couple thousand at a time. Then it increased. Regular monthly payments labeled as property support. That part we already knew." "What changed?" I asked. "The routing," he said. "At first, funds went through a joint account Victoria and I used for household expenses. Then, about 3 months in, everything shifted to a separate account. Her account. Yes. Not ours. Not mine. Hers. I sat still, letting that settle. And the paperwork? I asked. That's where it gets worse, he said quietly. Worse. I didn't interrupt. The original lake house transfer, he continued, was supposed to go directly to you. I signed the authorization forms. But the final deed was filed under her name instead. How is that possible? I asked. I'm still figuring that out, he said. But the signatures were processed electronically. The attorney's office confirmed they received the documents through Victoria. Of course they did. And they didn't verify with you? I asked. They assumed she was acting on my behalf, he said. She handled most of the communication. Convenience. That's how it starts. One person handles everything. No one double-checks. No one questions. Until something doesn't add up. I leaned back in my chair, thinking through it step by step. She didn't just take money, I said slowly. She controlled the flow of information. David didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, yes. That was the real leverage. Not access. Control. What about the second property? I asked. I visited it this morning, he said. That made me sit up. You went there? Yes, he replied. It's not listed as an investment property. It's furnished. I waited. It looks lived in, he added. A small pause. Not by us. I understood. She hadn't just redirected money. She had built something with it. Something private. Something separate. Utilities? I asked. In her name, he said. Electric, water, internet. All active. How long? 6 months. 6 months of a second life. Right under his nose. I exhaled slowly. This wasn't impulsive. This was structured. Layered. Careful. David, I said, I need you to think back. Has anything else changed in the last 2 years? He didn't answer immediately. I could almost hear him going through it. Meetings. Trips. Late nights. Then he spoke. She travels more, he said. Says it's for design projects, client meetings. Sometimes overnight. Sometimes longer. And you didn't question it. I trusted her, he said. Yes. That word again. Trust doesn't break all at once. It erodes. Quietly. One decision at a time. What about taxes? I asked. I'm reviewing them now, he said. If those properties generated income or were listed differently. His voice trailed off. He didn't need to finish. Because we both knew what that could mean. More than just theft. More than just deception. Something that could leave a trail. Good, I said. Keep going. There was a shift in his tone then. Not panic. Not confusion. Focus. I also contacted the attorney who handled the original transfer. He added. He wants to meet in person this afternoon. Go, I said. I will. A brief silence followed. Then David spoke again, slower this time. Mom, why aren't you angry? It was a fair question. I looked down at my hands. Still steady. I am, I said. Just not the way you expect. Because anger, loud and immediate, doesn't solve anything. It exposes you. Shows your position. Gives the other person time to react. What you're feeling right now, I continued. That urgency to confront her, that's exactly what she's counting on. He didn't respond. But he was listening. She's had 2 years to build this, I said. 2 years to cover her tracks. If you confront her without knowing everything, you give her the chance to explain, to twist it, to move things before you can stop her. A longer silence this time. Then, quietly, so we let her think everything is normal. Yes. And we gather everything first. Yes. I heard him exhale. All right, he said. I understand. Good. Because this wasn't about reacting anymore. It was about positioning. What time will you be home? I asked. Late afternoon, he said. After I meet the attorney. Don't say anything to her yet. I reminded him. I won't. And David, I added. Yeah? Watch her. A pause. What do you mean? Not what she says, I said. What she does. Because people can control their words. Not always their behavior. I will, he replied. When the call ended, I sat there for a moment, letting everything settle into place. Money redirected. Property transferred. A second home. Unexplained travel. Controlled communication. It wasn't one mistake. It was a system. I stood up and walked to the window again. The same street. The same quiet. But now, I wasn't looking at it the same way. Because this time, I wasn't the one being kept in the dark. I turned back toward the table, reaching for my notebook. But I didn't open it. Not yet. Because there was something else now. Something bigger than missing money or hidden property. A question. One that hadn't been answered yet. Why? Not just how she did it. Not just what she took. But why? She thought she could. And as I stood there, thinking it through, a different possibility crossed my mind. One that made everything feel colder. More calculated. More dangerous. Because if she had built something this careful, this hidden, then maybe this wasn't just about money. And if that was true, then what we were about to uncover next was going to be far worse than anything we had seen so far. By late afternoon, David wasn't just asking questions anymore. He was getting answers. Real ones. I just left the attorney's office, he said when he called. His voice was lower now, steadier, but there was something underneath it. Something heavier than before. What did he say? I asked. A pause. Then, carefully, he said the documents were legitimate. I didn't react immediately. Legitimate how? I asked. They were signed, David replied. Digitally. Time-stamped. Verified through the system they use. That doesn't mean they were correct, I said. I know, he answered. And that's where it gets complicated. I waited. The attorney said all instructions came through Victoria. He continued. Emails, confirmations, follow-ups. Everything. She was the primary contact. And you? I was copied, he said. But I didn't review everything. I trusted her to handle the details. Of course. That word again. Trust. Used like a shortcut. I leaned back slightly. So she didn't forge anything, I said slowly. She redirected. Yes. That was harder to prove. Harder to argue. Because technically everything had been approved. Just not understood. What about the email records? I asked. They're pulling them now, he said. But the attorney mentioned something else. What? He said there were updates. Updates? To the original instructions, David clarified. Changes made after the initial transfer request. My mind moved through that quickly. Meaning she adjusted the final details. I said. Yes. Without you noticing. A quiet exhale. Yes. That wasn't an accident. That was timing. You don't change documents like that unless you know when no one is looking. What about the bank? I asked. They confirmed the account activity, he said. And something else. I didn't speak. The account she used wasn't new, he added. It's been active for years. How many? 4. 4 years. Long before the house. Before the transfers. Before any of this. That changed things. This didn't start 2 years ago, I said. No, David replied. It didn't. Silence settled between us again. Not confusion this time. Recognition. Patterns don't begin overnight. They grow. Quietly. What about the second property? I asked. I spoke to the listing agent, he said. She remembers Victoria clearly. Of course she does. She said Victoria paid a large portion up front. David continued. No financing complications. No delays. With whose money? Another pause. Mine, he said. Again. Consistent. Structured. Repeatable. I stood up and walked slowly across the room. Each detail added weight. Each answer removed doubt. David, I said, I need you to think carefully. Has she ever had access to anything else? Accounts, passwords, documents? Yes, he said immediately. She handles most of the household finances. Bills, statements, even some of my business scheduling. That was enough. More than enough. She didn't just take money, I said. She positioned herself. I see that now, he replied. Good. Because seeing it was the first step. Understanding it was the next. What time are you getting home? I asked. I'm already on my way, he said. I should be there in 20 minutes. Don't confront her yet, I reminded him. I won't, he said. Then, after a brief pause, but she's going to know something's wrong. Let her feel that, I said. Just not enough to act. He didn't respond, but I knew he understood. Pressure reveals more than questions do. When the call ended, I didn't sit down. I stayed standing, looking at the table where we had eaten the day before. Nothing had changed physically. But everything felt different. Because now, this wasn't just about what had happened. It was about what was happening. Right now. 20 minutes later, I heard the front door open. David stepped inside quickly, his expression tight, focused. He didn't take off his coat. Where is she? He asked. In the living room, I said. He nodded once and walked in. I followed a few steps behind. Victoria was sitting on the couch, her posture relaxed, a book open in her lap. She looked up when we entered. Hey, she said, smiling lightly. You're back earlier than I expected. Her tone was normal. Carefully normal. David stopped in front of her. We need to talk, he said. She studied his face for a moment. Then closed the book slowly. Of course, she replied. I watched her closely. Her hands were steady. Her breathing even. No visible panic. But something had shifted. A slight delay in her movements. A fraction too controlled. What's going on? She asked. David didn't sit. He stayed standing. I went to the bank, he said. A pause. And the attorney. Another pause. This time longer. Victoria's eyes moved slightly. Just for a second. Then back to him. And? She asked. David didn't answer immediately. He just looked at her. Measuring. Waiting. Then he said, We'll go over everything tonight. Her smile didn't disappear. But it changed. Smaller. Tighter. All right, she said. If that's what you want. I stepped forward then, just enough to be fully in her line of sight. For now, I said calmly. We'll just sit. She looked at me. Really looked this time. Not past me. Not through me. At me. And for the first time, I saw something she hadn't shown before. Not confidence. Not control. Calculation. Fast. Sharp. Adjusting. She nodded once. Okay, she said. We all sat down. No one spoke for a moment. The room was quiet. But not empty. Because now, everything was there. The money. The house. The second property. The lies. All of it sitting between us. Unspoken. But understood. And as I watched her sit there, perfectly composed, I realized something else. Something that hadn't been obvious before. She wasn't surprised we found out. Not really. Which meant only one thing. She had expected this moment eventually. And if that was true, then whatever she had done, she had already prepared for what came next. No one touched the coffee. It sat on the table, slowly losing heat, just like the room itself. David leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting on his knees, his hands clasped together. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was watching her. Victoria sat across from him, back straight, legs crossed, hands resting neatly in her lap. If someone walked in at that moment, they would have seen a calm conversation about to begin. Not the collapse of something built over years. You said we'd go over everything tonight, she said, her voice even. So let's do that. She didn't ask what we knew. That told me enough. David nodded once. All right, he said. Let's start simple. He reached into his coat and pulled out his phone, unlocking it and placing it on the table between them. The transfers, he said. Monthly. Same amount. Same account. Victoria glanced at the screen briefly, then back at him. Yes, she said. I handled those. No hesitation. No denial. Just acknowledgement. David's jaw tightened slightly. Why did they go to your account? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she adjusted her posture, as if choosing her words carefully. It was temporary, she said. A holding account. Easier to manage before distributing the funds properly. David didn't move. For 2 years? He asked. Her expression didn't change. These things can take time, she replied. Legal processes, tax considerations, property maintenance. I simplified it. Simplified. That word again. I watched her closely. She wasn't scrambling for excuses. She was presenting a version. Controlled. Structured. Practiced. Then let's talk about the house, David said. A small pause. What about it? She asked. The lake house, he said. The one that was supposed to be in my mother's name. Victoria nodded slightly. Yes. It's not, he said. Another pause. Shorter this time. I know, she said. That was new. David blinked. You know? Yes, she repeated. I held it under my name for administrative reasons. Administrative, David echoed. Yes, she said. It made things easier while everything was being finalized. David leaned back slightly, processing that. And when exactly were you planning to finalize it? He asked. Victoria met his gaze. When the timing was right. Timing. Always timing. I spoke then. And who decides that? I asked. She turned to me. I do, she said calmly. Because I've been managing everything. Managing. Not helping. Not assisting. Managing. That distinction mattered. David's expression shifted. You were managing assets that weren't yours, he said. They were ours, she corrected softly. No, he replied. They weren't. Silence. This time, it stretched longer. Victoria looked at him carefully. You're upset, she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Controlled. Measured. I'm trying to understand, David replied. And I'm explaining, she said. No raised voices. No emotion. Just two versions of reality colliding. What about the second property? David asked. That landed differently. I saw it. A flicker. Small. But real. What second property? She said. It was the first time she had asked a question instead of answering one. David didn't hesitate. The one you purchased 6 months ago, he said. Fully furnished. Utilities active. In your name. Victoria's gaze held steady. But her fingers shifted slightly in her lap. Barely noticeable. Unless you were looking for it. I don't see how that's relevant, she said. It was paid for with my money, David replied. Another pause. Then, slowly, she said, Our money. No, he said again. Mine. The word landed harder this time. Clearer. Victoria inhaled softly. Not a sigh. A reset. You're looking at this the wrong way, she said. Then explain it the right way, David replied. For the first time, she didn't answer immediately. Not because she didn't have something to say. Because she was choosing what version to present next. I could see it now. Not panic. Not fear. Adaptation. She leaned forward slightly. I created stability, she said. Structure. Security. You were busy. You needed someone to handle things efficiently. At whose expense? I asked quietly. She looked at me again. Directly. And this time, there was no softness in her eyes. No one lost anything, she said. I held her gaze. I did, I replied. Another silence. Heavier. More defined. David looked between us. Mom didn't receive a single dollar, he said. Not one. Victoria's expression didn't break. But something underneath it shifted. You didn't ask, she said. That was the first crack. Small. But undeniable. I felt it. David did too. I shouldn't have had to ask, he said. No, she replied calmly. You trusted me to handle it. There it was again. Trust. Reframed. Used as justification. Not responsibility. I leaned back slightly, studying her. You're very careful with your words, I said. She didn't deny it. Because she didn't need to. Careful people don't speak without purpose. They build layers. Explanations that sound reasonable. Until you look at them closely. And then, they don't. David exhaled slowly. This isn't a misunderstanding, he said. No, she agreed. That was the second crack. Larger this time. More visible. The room felt different now. No more pretending. No more soft edges. Just truth. Or at least, the beginning of it. David straightened slightly. Then tell me what it is, he said. Victoria didn't answer right away. She looked at him. Then at me. Then back at him. Measuring. Calculating. Deciding. And when she finally spoke, her voice didn't sound defensive. It didn't sound apologetic. It sounded certain. Which was the most dangerous part. All right, she said. A small pause. Then she added, if you really want to understand, then you need to hear everything. The room went completely still. Because that wasn't an explanation. That was a warning. And something told me. Whatever came next was going to change more than just money. Victoria didn't rush into her explanation. She let the silence sit for a moment, like she understood its value. Then she leaned back slightly, her expression composed, her voice steady. You think this is about money, she said. It's not. David didn't respond. Neither did I. Because sometimes, the most revealing thing you can do is let someone keep talking. Victoria folded her hands together, almost casually. You see missing transfers. Property titles. Account activity, she continued. But you're looking at it as if it's isolated. It isn't. David's eyes stayed locked on her. Then what is it? He asked. She glanced at him, then at me, then back again. It's protection, she said. The word hung there. Unfamiliar. Unconvincing. For who? I asked. For us, she replied. David shook his head slightly. That doesn't make sense, he said. Taking money meant for my mother and putting it into your personal account is not protection. You're simplifying it, she said. No, he replied. I'm clarifying it. Her gaze sharpened. Just a fraction. You built your business quickly, she said. Faster than most people in your position. Do you know what that attracts? David didn't answer. Attention, she continued. Risk. Liability. You had exposure you didn't even see. I watched her carefully now. This was different. Not deflection. Reframing. You're saying you moved assets to reduce risk? I asked. Yes, she said. Exactly. David leaned forward again. Without telling me? He asked. You wouldn't have understood the timing, she replied. Or the structure. That wasn't an answer. That was control. You didn't give me the option to understand, he said. I made the decision that needed to be made, she responded. Calm. Direct. Certain. I felt something shift again. Because this wasn't just someone covering a mistake. This was someone who believed they were right. What about the house? I asked. She turned to me. The lake house was part of that strategy, she said. A stable asset. Held in a secure name until everything was aligned. And my name wasn't secure? I asked. She didn't hesitate. No, she said. That landed harder than anything else she had said. David looked at her sharply. What does that mean? He asked. Victoria exhaled slowly. It means, she said, that transferring high-value assets directly into your mother's name, without proper shielding, would have created unnecessary complications. Complications? I repeated. Yes, she said. Legal exposure. Tax inefficiencies. Potential claims. Claims. From who? For someone living the way I do? I asked quietly. She held my gaze. You underestimate how these systems work, she said. No. I understood exactly how this worked. Just not the way she was describing it. David shook his head again. This isn't adding up, he said. If this was about protection, why wasn't I informed clearly? Why wasn't anything documented transparently? It was documented, she said. Not correctly, he replied. She didn't respond to that. Because she couldn't. Instead, she shifted. Again. What matters, she said, is that nothing was lost. I let that sit for a second. Then I spoke. I lost 2 years, I said. Her expression didn't change. I lived thinking I had nothing. I continued. While you were holding everything. Still no reaction. David's voice tightened. And what about the second property? He asked. That question didn't land the same way anymore. This time, Victoria didn't deflect. She answered. It was part of the same structure, she said. David stared at her. You're telling me you used my money to buy a second house, as part of a structure I never agreed to? Yes, she said. No hesitation. No apology. Just confirmation. The room went quiet again. But now it felt different. Clearer. Because there was no more uncertainty. Just facts. You didn't protect anything, David said slowly. You controlled it. Victoria didn't argue. Because she didn't see a difference. I could see it now. Completely. This wasn't about hiding. This wasn't about panic. This was intention. Careful. Planned. Sustained. And that made it worse. Let's go back, I said. Both of them looked at me. To the beginning. I continued. 4 years ago. When that account was opened. Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. Why? She asked. Because that's when this started, I said. She didn't answer right away. Which told me enough. David noticed it too. That account existed before any transfers, he said. Before the house. Before everything. Victoria looked at him. Then away. Just for a second. Then back. It was preparation, she said. For what? David asked. She didn't respond immediately. Not because she didn't have an answer. Because she was deciding how much to reveal. I leaned forward slightly. That's the real question, I said. The room held still again. No movement. No sound. Just that quiet tension that builds when the truth is close. Victoria inhaled slowly. And when she spoke again, her voice was softer. But not weaker. More precise. Because I knew, she said, that if I didn't take control early. She paused. Just long enough to make the next part matter. Someone else would. David frowned. What does that mean? He asked. Victoria looked at him. Really looked this time. Not calculating. Not adjusting. Just steady. It means, she said, you're not the only one who had access to everything. The words landed differently. Unexpected. Unaligned with everything we thought we understood. I felt it immediately. That shift. That slight tilt in the story. Because if that was true, then this wasn't just about what she did. It was about who else could have. And for the first time since this started, the problem in front of us didn't feel contained anymore. It felt bigger. Much bigger. And something told me we had only uncovered half of it. Tot. Toi ainsi rewrite li part 8 v de la don co ven de la not v realism. Network plus external actors. Va comme la noi can ellen choix not de jure retention. David didn't answer right away. Not because he was confused. Because something about what she said didn't sit right. You're not the only one who had access, he repeated. This time, slower. More deliberate. Explain that. Victoria didn't rush. She shifted slightly in her seat, crossing her legs again, buying herself a second. Your business scaled quickly, she said. You brought in outside help. Accountants, coordinators, consultants. That's normal, David replied. Yes, she said. But it also means more visibility. I watched her carefully. She wasn't denying anything. She was reframing the risk. Who are you talking about? I asked. She looked at David. You hired Mark 4 years ago, she said. David nodded. He handled reporting, he said. Not transfers. Not directly, she replied. But he had access to summaries, cash flow timing, account structures. David frowned. That's still not control. No, she said. But it's enough to understand how money moves. That was more grounded. More realistic. Still not an answer. So what are you saying? I asked. Victoria leaned forward slightly. I'm saying if large amounts of money move the same way every month, anyone reviewing patterns could predict it. David's expression tightened. You think he was watching my accounts? He asked. I think he could have, she said. Could have. Not did. That distinction mattered. David shook his head. That's speculation, he said. Yes, she agreed. Which is why I didn't bring it to you at the time. That landed cleaner. No conspiracy. Just risk awareness. Then why move the money into your account? I asked. She answered this time without hesitation. Because it removed it from the pattern. That was the first answer that actually made sense. David paused. You're saying you broke the trail, he said. Yes. And then what? He asked. Victoria didn't respond immediately. That pause mattered. Because now we were back to the real issue. Not why she moved it, but what she did next. David stood up, walked to the table, and opened the folder again. I checked outbound transfers, he said. Her eyes moved. Small shift. But there. You didn't just hold the money, he continued. He turned a page. You moved it again. Silence. Then I asked quietly. To where? David answered before she could. Into a business account, he said. Registered under an LLC. Victoria didn't deny it. Yes, she said. No defense. No explanation. Just confirmation. What is the LLC for? I asked. She took a breath. It's a holding structure, she said. For what assets? David pressed. A mix, she replied. Cash positions, short-term placements, property-related reserves. This was better. More grounded. Still incomplete. You used my money to fund it, David said. Yes. And didn't tell me. Yes. The room went quiet. No drama. Just facts. I stepped in. Then let's stay with facts, I said. Money went from him, to you, then into that company. Victoria nodded. Yes. And from there? I asked. This time, she hesitated longer. Because now, there was nowhere else to redirect. David watched her. Waiting. Not reacting. Just waiting. Finally, she said. Some of it stayed there. And the rest? He asked. She looked at him. Then answered. It was deployed. David's jaw tightened. Into what? She didn't look away. Real estate partnerships, she said. Short-term placements. Deals that needed quick access to cash. That landed differently. Because now it was real. Not vague. Not abstract. You invested it, he said. I placed it, she corrected. Same pattern. Different word. But now, it didn't matter. Because the structure was clear. You used money that wasn't yours, I said. Yes. No hesitation. And tied it into deals we know nothing about, David added. Yes. Still no hesitation. That was the moment everything locked. No more theory. No more framing. Just truth. David closed the folder slowly. This has nothing to do with Mark, he said. Victoria didn't argue. Because she knew. That was just your justification, he added. She stayed quiet. Which was answer enough. I looked at her. Really looked. You didn't move the money because someone else might take it, I said. She didn't respond. You moved it because you wanted control over it. A pause. Then she said quietly. Yes. That was it. The cleanest answer she had given all day. No layers. No structure. Just intent. David nodded once. Slow. Measured. Then we're done guessing, he said. He looked at the papers again. Then back at her. We're just following the money now. And for the first time since this started. Victoria didn't try to redirect. Didn't expand. Didn't explain. She just sat there. Because now, there was nowhere left to hide. And whatever we uncovered next wasn't going to be about risk. Or protection. Or strategy. It was going to be about choice. David didn't look convinced. Not by the mention of another person. Not by the idea of some hidden system quietly. All David didn't react right away. That was the first sign something had shifted again. Owing everything to pass unnoticed. He looked at Victoria the same way he had been for the last hour. Carefully. Measuring what she said against what he already knew. No, he said finally. We're not doing that. Victoria's expression didn't change. Doing what? She asked. Expanding the problem, he replied. Adding variables that don't have proof. That landed. Because for the first time, he wasn't reacting. He was controlling the direction. You said someone made sure there were no alerts, he continued. Fine. We can verify that. But right. Now we're still at the same point. He tapped the phone screen lightly. The money went into your account. Silence. Clear. Direct. Undeniable. Victoria didn't interrupt. Which meant she understood something had shifted. David leaned forward slightly. And from there, he added, we track where it went next. That was new. Not accusation. Process. I watched her reaction. A small inhale. A pause that lasted just a fraction longer than before. You already have the records, she said. Not all of them, David replied. He stood up, walked toward the table, and picked up a folder I hadn't noticed him bring in earlier. Paper. Printed. Organized. I asked the bank for extended transaction history. He said, not just incoming transfers. Outgoing as well. Victoria's eyes moved to the folder. Then back to him. And? She asked. David didn't answer immediately. He opened it slowly, flipping through a few pages before placing it flat on the table. I followed the money, he said. The room felt smaller again. Not because of tension. Because of clarity. Some of it stayed in your account, he continued. But most of it didn't. Victoria didn't move. Where did it go? I asked. David looked down at the page, then back at her. Multiple transfers, he said. Different destinations. Different timing. That wasn't random. That was structure. Business accounts? I asked. He shook his head. No, he said. Personal. And one corporate account. Victoria's fingers tightened slightly. Barely visible. But there. Whose? I asked. David didn't answer right away. He turned the page. Then said it. An LLC. That changed the room. Because LLCs don't just appear. They're created. Registered. Maintained. For what purpose? I asked. David's eyes stayed on Victoria. That's what I want to hear from her, he said. Silence. Longer this time. Victoria didn't rush to respond. She didn't deny it. She didn't explain it away. She just sat there. Thinking. Calculating. Which meant one thing. This part mattered. All right, she said finally. Her voice was different now. Not defensive. Not smooth. More deliberate. That account was part of the structure, she said. David didn't react. What structure? He asked. A layer, she replied. A separation between personal assets and operational funds. Operational for what? He asked. She hesitated. Just a moment. Then answered. Investment positioning. The phrase sounded polished. Professional. But something about it felt incomplete. I stepped in. What exactly was being invested? I asked. She looked at me. Then back at David. Opportunities, she said. That wasn't an answer. That was a placeholder. David closed the folder slowly. No, he said. We're past that. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Past what? Vague explanations, he replied. He tapped the paper again. These transfers weren't random, he said. They followed a pattern. Same dates. Same amounts. Routed through your account, then moved again within 48 hours. Victoria didn't interrupt. But her posture had changed. Less relaxed. More contained. You weren't holding the money, David continued. You were moving it. Silence. Then I asked the question that had been building. To where? Victoria looked at both of us. For a moment, it seemed like she might answer directly. But instead, she said something else. You're assuming everything that moved was yours, she said. That landed differently. Unexpected. David frowned. What does that mean? It means, she said carefully, not every transaction in that account originated from you. I felt it immediately. Another shift. Subtle. But important. Then where did the rest come from? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Which meant she knew. And she was choosing whether to say it. David's voice dropped slightly. Victoria, he said, if there are other funds mixed into this, I need to know. She looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time since this began. There was something new in her expression. Not confidence. Not control. Wait. I didn't expect you to find that part, she said quietly. That was it. That was the crack. Not in the story. In her. David didn't move. Find what? He asked. Victoria exhaled slowly. then said something that changed everything again. There were other deposits, she said. From outside. Outside where? I asked. She hesitated. Just long enough to matter. Then answered. From people you don't know. The room went completely still. Because that wasn't just about money anymore. That was about connection. About involvement. About something that extended beyond this house. David straightened. Who? He asked. Victoria shook her head slightly. It's not that simple, she said. It needs to be, he replied. Another pause. Longer. Heavier. And then she said it. If I tell you, she said, you're not just dealing with me anymore. Silence. Absolute. Because now, this wasn't just about what she did. Or how she did it. It was about who else was part of it. And for the first time since this started, the situation didn't feel contained. It felt exposed. Wider. Riskier. And something told me. The next answer wasn't just going to change our family. It was going to pull us into something we weren't prepared for. David didn't raise his voice. That was the first thing I noticed. Because most people, when they hear something like that, react. They push. They demand answers. He didn't. He just stood there, looking at her, like he was recalculating everything he thought he understood. If I tell you, he repeated slowly, we're not just dealing with you anymore. Victoria didn't respond. She didn't need to. The weight of what she had said was already sitting in the room. I stepped in before he could push too far, too fast. Then we need to understand exactly what that means, I said calmly. Both of them looked at me. Not guesses, I added. Facts. David nodded slightly. He understood. This wasn't the moment to react. It was the moment to control the direction. Start at the beginning, he said to her. The outside deposits. Who sent them? Victoria exhaled slowly. Not hesitation. Preparation. They weren't random, she said. They were structured. Timed. Routed through specific channels. That doesn't answer the question, David replied. No, she said. It explains why the answer isn't simple. There it was again. Complexity. Layers. But this time, it didn't feel like deflection. It felt like setup. I watched her carefully. Her posture hadn't changed much. But her tone had. Less polished. More precise. You said people we don't know, I said. That suggests external involvement. Business? Investment groups? She shook her head slightly. Not officially, she said. David frowned. What does that mean? It means, she replied, they don't operate under names you can just look up. The room went still again. Because now we weren't talking about mismanaged finances. We were talking about something intentionally hidden. David's voice lowered. Are you saying you were working with them? He asked. Victoria didn't answer immediately. Then, quietly, I interacted with them. That distinction mattered. Worked with implied partnership. Interacted with implied distance. But not innocence. I stepped closer to the table. And the money? I asked. What was its role? Victoria looked at me. Then at David. Then back. It was part of a flow, she said. A flow of what? David asked. Capital, she replied. That word again. Clean. Neutral. But not honest enough. David shook his head. No, he said. You don't move money like this without purpose. What was it funding? Victoria's eyes held his. And for the first time, she didn't soften it. She didn't adjust. She just said it. Positioning. That same word. But this time, it carried more weight. I narrowed my eyes slightly. For what outcome? I asked. She didn't respond right away. Because now, every word mattered. Every detail had consequence. David stepped forward. You took money meant for my mother, he said, routed it through your account, mixed it with external deposits, and moved it into an LLC you control. Yes, she said. No hesitation. No denial. Just confirmation. And you expect me to believe this was all for some undefined positioning? He asked. Victoria's expression remained steady. I expect you to understand that it wasn't random, she said. That's not enough, he replied. No, it wasn't. I could feel it now. The line we were approaching. The point where explanations either became truth or broke apart. Then be clear, I said. What were you positioning for? Victoria's gaze shifted between us again. Measuring. Weighing. And then she made a decision. You built something valuable, she said to David. Fast. Visible. Liquid. He didn't interrupt. You think that kind of growth goes unnoticed? She continued. It attracts interest, he said. Yes, she replied. And not all of it is the kind you can decline. That changed the tone. Subtly. But completely. Are you saying someone approached you? I asked. She didn't answer directly. They made it clear, she said, that your financial structure was accessible. Accessible. That word felt colder than anything else she had said. David's expression hardened. You're talking about pressure, he said. I'm talking about reality, she replied. Silence. Because now we weren't dealing with speculation. We were dealing with intent. What kind of pressure? I asked. Victoria hesitated. Just long enough to matter. Influence, she said. Requests. Suggestions. Opportunities that weren't really optional. David took a step closer. And instead of telling me, he said, you decided to move everything yourself? I decided to create distance, she replied. By putting everything under your name? He asked. Yes. The answer came too easily. Too clean. I felt it immediately. Something didn't align. Because if this had been about protection, why keep it hidden? Why let it continue for 2 years? Then explain this, I said. Both of them turned to me. If this was about shielding assets, I continued, why didn't you isolate them? Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. What do you mean? I mean separation, I said. Clear boundaries. Controlled accounts. Not a system where money flows through you and disappears into multiple directions. She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. David saw it too. This wasn't just about protection, he said slowly. Victoria didn't respond. This was control. He added. Still nothing. And something else, I said quietly. They both looked at me. Because now, the pattern was clear. Too clear. You didn't just move the money, I continued. You built something with it. Victoria's gaze held mine. For a second. 2. Then she spoke. Yes, she said. No hesitation this time. No adjustment. Just truth. David's voice dropped. What did you build? The question hung in the air. Heavy. Final. Because now, there was no room left for redirection. No space for vague explanations. Just one answer. Victoria looked at him. And for the first time since this began, her expression changed. Not fear. Not panic. Something closer to inevitability. You really want to know? She asked. David didn't move. Yes. A long pause followed. The kind that stretches just enough to make what comes next feel permanent. And then she said it. I built something you're not going to be able to walk away from. Silence. Complete. Because that wasn't just an answer. It was a warning. And something told me. Whatever she had created, we were already standing inside it. David didn't speak after that. Not immediately. He just stood there, looking at her like he was trying to decide whether he was hearing the truth, or something much worse. I built something you're not going to be able to walk away from. The words didn't sound emotional. They sounded certain. That was what made them dangerous. I stayed quiet. Because this was the moment where people either reveal everything, or try one last time to control the narrative. David finally moved. One slow step forward. What did you build? He asked again. This time, his voice was lower. Steadier. Final. Victoria didn't look away. She didn't soften it. She didn't adjust her tone. She just answered. A structure, she said. One that protects assets, controls movement, and limits exposure. David didn't react. Because that wasn't enough. Not anymore. You already said that, he replied. Say it clearly. A pause. Longer this time. Because now, clarity had a cost. Victoria exhaled slowly. Then she leaned forward slightly, resting her hands together. I created a system that doesn't rely on your direct ownership, she said. One that separates you from what you have, so it can't be easily taken. Taken. By who? That question had been sitting there from the beginning. Now it mattered more than ever. And who exactly is trying to take it? I asked. Victoria didn't answer right away. She looked at David. Not at me. At him. You think success only brings opportunity, she said. It doesn't. It brings attention. Expectations. Pressure. We already covered that. David replied. Stop repeating it and explain what you actually did. She held his gaze. And then, finally, she dropped the part she had been holding back. I connected your assets to a network, she said. The room went completely still. Because that wasn't vague. That wasn't general. That was specific. David frowned. What kind of network? Victoria didn't look away. One that moves capital quietly, she said. Across accounts, across entities, across people. I felt something shift immediately. Not just tension. Recognition. Because now, the pattern made sense. The layered transfers. The LLC. The external deposits. It wasn't random. It was integration. You put his money into something shared, I said. Victoria nodded slightly. Yes. David's voice tightened. Shared with who? Another pause. Then she said it. People who know how to keep things protected. That wasn't an answer. That was a category. And categories hide names. I want specifics, David said. Victoria's expression didn't change. You don't need names, she replied. You need to understand the position you're in. No, he said. I need to understand what you did with my money. There it was. Clear. Direct. Unavoidable. Victoria sat back slightly. And for the first time, she stopped redirecting. Because she couldn't anymore. I used it to buy access, she said. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. David didn't move. What does that mean? He asked. It means, she continued, I secured a place in a system that doesn't collapse when one piece is targeted. That sounded structured. Planned. Deliberate. And completely outside anything he had agreed to. You invested it, he said. No, she replied. I positioned it. That word again. But now it had meaning. Because positioning implies strategy. Not just movement. I stepped closer. And what did you get in return? I asked. Victoria looked at me. Then answered. Protection, she said. Continuity. Leverage. Leverage. That word mattered. Because leverage always comes with conditions. What kind of leverage? David asked. Victoria didn't respond immediately. Because now. Every answer created more questions. Finally, she said. The kind that ensures no one can isolate you financially. David let out a short breath. That's not protection, he said. That's dependency. Victoria didn't argue. Because she knew it was true. And you did all of this, he continued, without telling me. Without asking. Without giving me a choice. Yes. No hesitation. No apology. Just truth. The room felt different now. Not tense. Defined. Because everything had a shape now. A structure. A system. And he was inside it. Can it be undone? I asked. That was the question that mattered. Not how it happened. Not why. But whether it could stop. Victoria didn't answer right away. That was the first warning. Then she said, "Not quickly." David's jaw tightened. "Not quickly isn't no," he said. "No," she replied. "It's not no. But it's not simple either." There it was. The cost. Time. Complexity. Risk. "What happens if we pull everything out?" David asked. Victoria looked at him carefully. And this time, there was no control left in her tone. Just honesty. "You don't just pull out," she said. The words landed hard. "Why not?" he asked. "Because you're not the only one connected anymore," she replied. Silence. Absolute. Because that confirmed everything. The outside deposits. The network. The shared structure. It wasn't just his money anymore. It was part of something larger. "You tied him to them," I said quietly. Victoria didn't deny it. "Yes." David didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't react the way most people would. Because now, this wasn't about betrayal alone. It was about consequence. "You made a decision that affects everything," he said slowly. "Yes." "And you expect me to accept that?" he asked. "No," she said. That answer changed something. Because for the first time, she wasn't defending it. She was acknowledging it. "Then what do you expect?" I asked. Victoria looked at both of us. And for the first time since this began, there was no calculation left. No strategy. Just something direct. "You're going to have to choose," she said. David frowned. "Choose what?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Whether you want control back." A small pause. Just enough to make the next part land. "Or whether you want to walk away from everything you've built to get it." Silence filled the room. Because that wasn't a situation. That was a trap. And something told me. The choice she was describing wasn't going to be as simple as it sounded. David didn't answer her right away. Not because he didn't understand the question. But because, for the first time since all of this began, he did. Completely. "Whether you want control back, or walk away from everything you've built to get it." The words stayed in the room, heavy, final. I watched him carefully. Not the man who walked into my house yesterday, confident and distant. But the boy I raised. The one who used to sit at this same table, asking me what the right thing to do was. He didn't look at Victoria anymore. He looked at me. Just for a second. And that was enough. Because I knew that look. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't fear. It was decision. "I'm not choosing between those two," he said finally. Victoria's expression didn't change. "That's not how this works," she replied. "No," he said quietly. "That's how you set it up." Silence followed. But it didn't feel the same anymore. Because something had shifted. Not in the facts. In him. "You built a system," he continued. "You moved money, created layers, connected it to something bigger." "Yes," she said. "And you did it without telling me." "Yes." "And now you're telling me I either accept it, or lose everything." Victoria didn't respond. Because that part was true. David nodded once. Then stepped back slightly. "All right," he said. That word landed differently. Not agreement. Acceptance. Of reality. Not her version. His. I stood up slowly. Either of them stopped me. I walked to the kitchen counter, opened the drawer, and took out the same notebook I had been writing in for years. Groceries. Bills. Medication. Every dollar had been accounted for. Every absence had been felt. I placed it on the table in front of them. This, I said, is what your system looked like to me. Victoria glanced at it. Then back at me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I lived 2 years thinking I had nothing. I continued, while everything meant for me moved through your hands. David looked at the notebook. Then at her. Then back at the pages. And something in his expression hardened. Not anger. Clarity. You didn't protect anything, he said. Victoria didn't argue. You controlled it, he added. Still no response. And you made decisions that weren't yours to make. That was the part she couldn't defend. Not with structure. Not with strategy. Because it wasn't about systems anymore. It was about choice. David picked up his phone again. Not to check anything. Not to scroll. Just to hold it. Like he was grounding himself. I'm going to unwind it, he said. Victoria's eyes shifted slightly. Not panic. But awareness. That's not going to be simple, she said. I didn't say it would be, he replied. A pause. Then she added, you'll lose money. Yes. You'll lose connections. Yes. You might lose more than that. He didn't hesitate. Then I lose it, he said. The room went quiet again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was clean. Because the decision had been made. I watched Victoria closely. Waiting. For denial. For argument. For something. But she didn't fight it. She just sat there. Still. Measured. And then, slowly, she nodded. Then you should start immediately, she said. That surprised me. Not the words. The tone. No resistance. No manipulation. Just acknowledgement. David looked at her. Why? He asked. She held his gaze. Because the longer it stays connected, she said, the harder it becomes to separate. That was the most honest thing she had said all day. I could hear it. He could too. David nodded once. Then turned to me. Mom, he said, I'm going to fix this. I looked at him. Really looked. Not at what he had built. Not at what he had lost. But at what he was choosing now. You already are, I said. Because fixing something doesn't start when everything is solved. It starts when you decide to see it clearly. Victoria stood up then. Slowly. Calmly. I'll gather everything you need, she said. David didn't stop her. He didn't thank her either. He just watched. As she walked out of the room. No rush. No panic. Just quiet. The door closed behind her a few seconds later. And just like that, the house felt different again. Not empty. Not heavy. Clear. David sat down at the table. Across from me. The same place he had sat the day before. But he wasn't the same. Neither was I. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he looked at the notebook again. I didn't know, he said. I know, I replied. And I meant it. Because not knowing doesn't make something right. But it explains how it happens. He nodded slowly. Then said, I thought I was taking care of you. I placed my hand over the notebook. You were, I said. Just not in the way that reached me. Silence again. But softer this time. He exhaled. Long, steady. I'm going to start with the accounts, he said. Then the properties. Then everything else. I nodded. One step at a time, I said. Because that's how you undo something built over years. You don't break it all at once. You take it apart. Piece by piece. Carefully. He stood up again. Different now. more grounded, more certain. And before he walked out of the room, he stopped. Turned back. "Mom," he said. "Yes? I'm sorry." I looked at him. Not as a businessman. Not as someone who had made mistakes. But as my son. "I know," I said. And that was enough. He nodded once. Then left. The door closed behind him. And the house was quiet again. Just like before. But not the same. I sat down slowly, opened the notebook, and ran my fingers over the pages. The numbers were still there. The missing pieces too. But they didn't feel the same anymore. Because now, I understood what had been taken. And what hadn't. I hadn't lost everything. Not really. I had lost the illusion. The idea that trust, once given, would always be honored. That family, once built, would always be safe. But I hadn't lost myself. I hadn't lost my clarity. And I hadn't lost my voice. I closed the notebook gently. Because some things, once seen clearly, don't need to be written down anymore. They stay with you. And as I sat there, in the same quiet kitchen where this all began, I realized something simple. I didn't lose a house I never received. I didn't lose money I never touched. I lost something far more valuable. And I got something back in return. The truth. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me again.